Our final segment in today's education episode shares more about our feature on teachers and their mentors, written by Bruce Ingram. We're chatting with Lord Botetourt High School's new assistant principal, Jimmy Yager, who shares more about his story as a local educator, the people who helped him along the way, and how he's now impacting future teachers and students. You can read the feature in full in our latest issue on newsstands now, or you can always see more at theroanoke.com. Hi, Jimmy. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, so glad to have you here.
Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time, especially as you delve into a new role, which we'll talk about shortly. And I was so glad to catch you just before the new school year starts. I know you'll be busy in just a few short weeks as we prepare all the kids for another great year.
Right, for sure.
So tell us about your role in local education. You know, how your teaching career started, because I hear that you're a career switcher, as we talked about in segment 1.
Yes, I mean, it was a journey a little bit. I think teaching's plan C, and I found that plan C is really, really good. So you never know. You kind of have those dreams of where you want to start out. My original plan, I think, was become a golf course manager.
That's a pretty good one, too.
Yeah, and then went to college. Things changed a little bit. Got involved in youth ministry, worked for Young Life. I was a volunteer leader in college at Virginia Tech, go Hokies. And so it was a real natural transition, actually, and it was a random event. You know, people intersect your lives in different times. I had a really, really good friend of mine, Jay and his wife Susan, mentored my wife and I in our early years of marriage, and just meant a ton to us. Kind of turned 30 and thought, what do I really want my life to be about? What do I really want to give myself to? And I loved what I did, but I kind of realized this isn't what I'm going to do forever. And so I called up Jay, who actually ran a lawn care business, not in education at all. And I was like, Jay, I feel there's something else for me. I don't know what it is. And over that lunch, he's like, what about teaching? And I was like, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Wow.
And that seed got planted and moved to Fredericksburg. Got in a career switcher program at University of Mary Washington, and here we are 20 years later. So you never know what happens over a lunch that you didn't expect to kind of change the course of your life a little bit.
How do you think maybe some of your background helped you do the career switcher, become a new teacher who brought your previous experience into this new path?
And I think for me, and really this goes with my family. My wife and I met as Young Life leaders at Tech, and so from the beginning, giving our lives away to students, young men and women, was the heart of what we were about. So when we came together, that's what we knew we wanted to do. And so that relational aspect, caring for kids, and really giving kids what they deserve. They deserve our best. Every day that you're in a classroom. When I closed my door as a teacher, and I taught math for 20 years, and loved it every day. I wanted my kids, my students, to know that I valued them in the way I dressed, the way I conducted, the passion I had for what I taught them. I wanted them to feel encouraged and inspired. Every opportunity, every class for me was a chance to have something that they could take away, and for them to see that we value them, we care about them, and we want them to achieve all the possible things that they could.
Spoken like a passionate educator, for sure. And so what was it like as a new teacher stepping in? I know this was 20 years ago, but still, were you nervous at all? I mean, what made it exciting to be into math? I mean, specifically from your background.
Yeah, I was actually an ag econ major,
okay.
So math was my shortest route. So when I looked at the career switcher piece, and it's also pretty tangible, I mean, so that part appealed to me, and it was the quickest route I could become a teacher. So and I enjoyed math a lot.
Cool.
From my early years, that math was always probably one of my favorite subjects. But I tell you, it was a lot. I vividly remember one of my first weeks coming home and laying on the floor and looking at my wife and just saying, I don't know that I can do this. I mean, just the exhaustion that you would get from every day pouring yourself out and putting everything you have into a class over and over again. I mean, there's tired and there's Friday teacher tired.
I have heard about this. My husband's a teacher, as you know from this episode, so I'm quite familiar with that.
Yes. But you get in a rhythm, and so in time you kind of figure it out and adjust to it. But yeah, it's incredibly rewarding, very tiring, and every teacher earns that summer off and then some.
Absolutely. And I would expect that despite your years of experience, no year is ever the same as a previous year. And there are probably new challenges along the way. Just because you've been in for 20 years doesn't mean it's gotten easier in certain aspects, right?
Right. And there's always something to learn. As we contemplated this move into administration that we made over the summer, first of all, I just love the classroom. And I've actually been certified to go into admin for about 8 years and just didn't want to leave. And it was even hard this summer we grueled a lot over that decision. But every student is different too. So things you do for one student may not work for another because their needs of their heart, their needs of who they are as a human being vary from student to student. And working with high school students, let's be honest, it varies from day to day or minute to minute. Right. So you've always got to adjust and have that heart of wanting to do what's best for that student, not what's easiest, but what's best for them. So those hard conversations where they see that you really care about them and value what they're doing and are the things that they're giving their lives to, the way they're spending the time, the way the work ethic they have, is it pointing them to where they want to be? So that's the thing that's great about, I think, being a teacher, is that you get to have those conversations with students, those real-life conversations, to challenge them to think about, okay, is this really the direction you want to go? And are you doing the things that are getting you to the place you want to be?
It's an excellent piece of advice for new teachers, too, which we'll add on to that here later. But so in talking about this particular feature you were in, it's about mentorship. And so I'd love to hear you give a shout-out to maybe one or two of your mentors who helped you along the way.
Oh, goodness. And there's so many. One of the things that I love about what I do, first of all, teaching's hard. I'm going to be very honest. It is a challenge. I mean, the demands of having to produce every day, Phil, right now we're on a block schedule where I came from, so 4.5 hours of content a day you're responsible for planning. That's a lot, and then grading and everything on top of it, and the energy it takes to do that is hard. But I think anything you do that hard is going to draw you closer to people. So through the years, there's just countless of people that have touched my life. I hope in some ways I've maybe had an impact on them as well. But that camaraderie you develop when you're a part of something that's rewarding and hard is really deep. But the relationships I had when I was on Young Life staff, had some friendships that, oh goodness, I valued them. They were all in my wedding and just some great friendships. And when I left that, I really thought that, goodness, this door is closing, and most of the productive years of my life were probably behind me. And the beautiful part I found is, boy, we were just getting started, because teaching has brought that and then some. Just the depth that I've had with friendships with colleagues through the years have been special, lifelong friends, and just cherished memories that I'll have forever. So early on, ironically, probably one of the persons I'm most responsible for me going into education was someone I never met. That was my mom's dad. He was superintendent of Orange County Schools, and he passed away, unfortunately, before when she was 19. So I never had the chance to meet him. But I always heard her talk about him in glowing terms and the impact that he had on people's lives. So even early on, my mom was a teacher for some time too, elementary school. So
I love that. It's in your family.
It's been in the family. So to hear the impact he had and hear people talk about him really inspired me to think, gosh, that's a vision that I'd love to have for my life. And then my first year, there was a couple, so this is kind of neat. George and Lou Crowley, when I was in Fredericksburg, were a couple that taught in the same department. Husband and wife taught together.
Wow, that is
and
unusual.
My wife is a special education teacher at Lord Botetourt High School. So right now, 3 of the 4 of my family members are all at Lord Botetourt every day.
That's so cool.
I asked them if we could bring the dog, but they kind of...
I think the students would appreciate it.
They might. I don't know. You haven't known this dog. But yeah, so it's really neat to see that, to see their marriage, and to see... he encouraged me, because that first year as a teacher is really hard.
Sure.
And you're going to want to quit, because it's challenging. But he kept encouraging me and giving me advice and pointing me in places and stood by me when all the mistakes that I made that first year. And to see their relationship and how they shared that together. So it's been neat, kind of come full circle, and now my wife and I are together teaching in the same high school.
I love that so much. That is full circle. I love that. And, to think that you've made an impact on the students too. It's such a wonderful, I love that so much. And thinking about, how you've mentored others, is there anybody or persons that you really want to give a shout out to? I'm sure that over 20 years, you've really helped out a lot of teachers, new and, previously there.
Yeah, and I think, again, there's so many relationships that I've had, and I think it goes both ways. The people that hopefully I've mentored in my time, maybe not even knowing it, they've mentored me as well. You can always learn from anyone. So countless number of people through the years that we've just shared similar visions. So when you find someone, every place I've been, and I've only really been at 2 places. I was in Fredericksburg City for 13 years. This is my 7th year in Botetourt. I always really looked for another teacher that I could, especially another guy, that I could connect with, that our friendship, that we could have similar visions and challenge one another. Because one of the challenges of teaching, I think, is to get comfortable, and to where you kind of go through the motions, you pull out the file, especially after several years, you just pull out what you've done and reproduce the lesson plan you've done over and over again, rather than really pushing yourself to say, okay, what are the needs of the students I have coming in, and how can we together hold each other accountable to give all that we have? Because this is this student's first time through a content area.
That's a really good point.
You've taught it 15 times.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
This is their first time seeing it. So how can we make sure that we are creative and keep innovating and give our students the best education that they can possibly receive? So there have been several of those through the years that have really meant a ton to me.
What a great piece of advice, though, for teachers that have been there for a long time, who maybe they're close to retirement, but to hear that they're still going to be able to learn something new every single day. They still are going to be able to connect with students in a different way because they're learning it for the first time compared to you. I mean, that's really important. Like, that's an important note for teachers to remember, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I hear, of course, that congratulations are in order. You were teaching mathematics and statistics, but now you're the assistant principal. And so tell us about that. That's a really exciting step for you to take in your career path.
Yeah, it is. And like I said earlier, we labored over it a lot. You know, I think when you close that door and you've got 90 minutes with a group of students, that's special. Mm-hmm. That's a treat. It really is. That's the most powerful thing we do. Education takes a lot of heat nowadays, but I can tell you there are some amazing people in our buildings and in our leadership that love kids deeply and make great sacrifices for students. So that is a magical time. And so I think for me, as my wife and I kind of processed this move, it was how can we take our vision and passion for what we're about in education and then start to try to dream with other people about it, to extend that, I guess, sphere of influence, if you will. You know, you've kind of, as a teacher, you've got your classroom and everything else, what I always said through my years, I can't control a lot what goes on outside of my building. Right. And there's things that, because of a bureaucracy, there's things and decisions that are made that are above me, and that's the way it works, and I have to abide by those. But how I abide by those, I control in that classroom. And so now to dream with teachers and think broader and to be a part of developing the culture of LB, and we've got Botetourt's a special place, a very special place. And through my interview process, I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of reluctantly filled out my application. When I heard of the opening, my wife and I talked over a weekend and originally said, I don't think we're ready to pursue this right now. Mm-hmm. And then we're people of faith. We prayed and didn't feel at peace at all about that. And doors just started opening after that. And so we walked through and here we go. So again, I think to dream about those bigger pieces and to have that sphere kind of expand is really exciting for us as we kind of embark on a new journey. And in some ways, though, I feel like I'm starting over again. I hope I don't have that moment again where I lay on the floor and say, I don't think I can do this.
Let me get back to you in September and see how you're doing. Right. Yeah, that's a good point, though. It feels like almost a brand new first day of school for you next month. I mean, that's very interesting.
It is. You have no idea all the things. And I'm learning. I'm only a month in and learning all the many facets that go into making a school day happen. It's extensive.
Sure. But I think it's interesting because you're getting to learn new things. And in turn, you'll be mentoring teachers and helping those out. And you'll sort of maybe even have a much better understanding of why things are working the way that they do because you're in this new position. So that's really neat. But you're in a wonderful position to mentor others now.
Right. Yes.
So I suspect a lot of people will be coming to you for assistance and mentorship.
Well, and to be mentored, as part of the process, when I went into the interview, even that day I was interviewed, I wasn't 100% sure this is where we were going to go. And that day really sealed it. The leadership in Botetourt is amazing, and they were very genuine with me, having open and honest conversations about what's needed at Lord Botetourt and what's best for the Yager family. And so to see that genuineness and their concern for, yes, the school, because that's their top priority, but then for my family and honesty about what it entailed, because I've taught for 20 years. I know what I'm getting into. It's a challenge for sure, but we're excited to embrace that new challenge. And it said earlier, we can get comfortable, and so every now and then it's good to kind of shake things up a little bit.
A little scary,
but a little scary, but good to embrace a new challenge.
But I think that's something students and teachers could also learn from you, that sometimes to grow it can be a little scary.
Right, for sure.
Is there anything that you're particularly excited to do in your new role that comes to the top of your mind?
Culture is a piece of it. I love to dream about intentionality with things we do to try to develop culture and with students. Students, I'm a big believer that the human heart doesn't change a lot over the course of history, but the process does. And so I think our students now, they're, just like always, they're searching to see who they are. I love high school because it's that last step where the last touch they get. I think the hardest job in teaching is probably kindergarten, first grade, when you're forming those early years of teaching. But as a high school teacher, you're the last step before they either enter the military, work, or college. And so are we developing the things we need to make sure our students are equipped for that next step? And part of our division vision right now is to really check that, to make sure, are we giving students the things they need? When they walk out of our doors, they're ready to be successful in whatever endeavor is next for them. So to dream about that and to ask those questions, and I've got an amazing principal, assistant principal to dream with on that. So to be in those conversations and hopefully to develop those plans, that's the part I think that really excites me. And then hopefully the 20 years I've accumulated some knowledge of teaching and practices and caring for kids, to sit down with teachers in the evaluative process and dream with them about what they're doing in their classrooms, why they're doing the things they do, and whether they're being successful or not. That'll excite me to dig deeper with teachers, because as a teacher, I'm pretty confined to a spot, and you get your rhythms,
Sure.
And there's people in our building that I'll see and know them, but we'll say hi and never really interact on a deep level at all, just because it's the nature of the beast. As a teacher, when you're in the building, you're always running,
right.
From the time you get in the door until you leave in the afternoon. So to kind of get a broader knowledge of our faculty and dig in deeper with them will be exciting.
Yeah. A quick side question. Were you doing sports or yearbook or anything like that in addition to on top of your already busy schedule?
In my early years, I coached golf, and then I was senior class sponsor, which was a ton of fun. I really loved that, kind of seeing that last piece and getting to share that graduation night with our seniors and senior trip and seeing them as they run to that finish line. That was a really neat experience.
Cool. Do you find it important for teachers to be able to immerse themselves in things like that? I mean, it's sort of extra credit for them to a degree, but
yeah, I think it's huge, and that's where your kind of commitment to the community really deepens, and that's where you develop that collegial relationship with colleagues. When you're chaperoning a homecoming or prom or on a field trip with students or even at a game, just being with your colleagues and talking and getting to know them more, it just gets your connection to the community deeper. And when we are public servants, I mean, that's what teachers were to do. We're to serve the community. So that's a huge vital part to help you dig in deeper and I think create your deeper ownership of your job, that it's not just a job, it really is a calling, and a specific calling to a specific community. So I think your passion and love for where you are, and we live in Botetourt. My wife and I have always had the passion that we're going to live where we teach and work, and our kids are going to go through the school system that we're employed in. That's just something for us that we really valued. We wanted to be deeply connected with where we live and where we work, and so I think it does help that grow a lot deeper.
Yeah, you've really hit it on the head. So, my husband's a teacher. We don't have children, but, I see as an employee, as a manager, I see people who are coming into our community after they graduate high school. And so they've had to learn all these things that you've taught them and bring it into the real world. So for me, it's very easy to see that cause and effect of bringing in a great new employee who's excited to be there because they've learned, so much and been active in their high school or middle school years. And so that's really neat to kind of see that path that they take. And then they join our community and they're part of it, right? They feel like they're with us, and not just kids being, kind of dragged into it.
Right, absolutely.
So you've given some really, really good advice here. I'd love to get even more specific on that. So for our listeners, talking about advice, whether it's new teachers thinking about joining the education community, especially in the face of a national teacher shortage, or perhaps teachers who are new to the game, what advice would you just love to give them, in addition to maybe helping out with extracurriculars and joining up with camaraderie with your colleagues?
I would say do it. I mean, that's simple, but we need you. We need great teachers, and I will say this: it is a fabulous job. I love it. I love what I do. Going back into my personal journey, like I said, when I made that change and got into education, part of me was worried that I had a job that I loved with Young Life, and I felt like I was making an impact in people's lives. My wife and I got to really do it together, and have deep relationships with other friends, colleagues, and students. And I was worried that I would not have that same feeling. And education has been, like I said, it's filled all of that.
Yeah, sounds like that on an even bigger scale.
And I think even before, when I would go into a high school to go to a basketball game or football game or whatever, I was still kind of an outsider coming into that environment. And we immersed ourselves in that culture on a regular basis. But from the day one you're hired, you're an insider. You're a part of that community. I remember when I was hired in Fredericksburg, one of the principals that hired me said, you're the conversation around the pool this summer. Because schedules go out and they see a name they don't recognize, and they're like, who's Yager? Like, what's he going to be like? My kid's going to be in his class. So, you're a central part of the community just from day one. And that's a neat part, to be connected with people on that level and to do something that's significant. I've always, when you're growing up through the years, I always feared working a job where I punch a clock. I come home and I do it just to make a living. And this is so much more than that. And so, I would encourage anyone that is even remotely considering entering education, take that first step. Look into a career switcher program if you're out of college. If you're younger and looking for a major, education is a great one. And it's an incredibly rewarding career where you'll make great memories that will last you a lifetime.
You must have been a really good student. You must be a forever student because I can see the passion as you're speaking
about
all
this.
It's
funny. It took me a while to get going. I taught math. My lowest grade of my life was a D in 8th grade Algebra 1. So hopefully we turn that. Luckily we turned that around after a while.
Record,
so yeah. So you never know.
Okay. So final question for you: when you aren't at the school, which sounds like you are quite a bit, but when you aren't, what are you and your family? Where are you going? Where are you eating? Where are you playing out in our region? Whether Botetourt or anywhere else?
Yeah. I love the outdoors, so I'm a hiker. So,
perfect spot for you.
Obviously part of our transition was those summers off are gone for me. Now my wife, though, is still off, so she's reminded me of that over the summer frequently. But my last kind of hurrah was hiking Dragon's Tooth. So
nice.
With so many great places to get out in the woods. We live over by Reed Mountain, so I will access those trails and hike a lot. But we're diehard Hokies, so to be close to Blacksburg, if we have some free time, that's kind of where we're headed.
Excellent. So you're going to see the games if you can?
I'm hoping as many as we possibly can.
Nice. Well, I wish you the best of luck. See if you can win some tickets. Plenty of season tickets. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming on. Congratulations on your new role as assistant principal at Lord Botetourt High School. I'm really excited to see what you're going to do and how you're going to help your faculty, staff, and students, and their parents, too. Don't forget about them.
That's right. Hey, Liz, thanks so much. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much to educator and new assistant principal in Lord Botetourt High School, James Yager, for being on From Print to Podcast today. Thank you for all you're doing for our students and our school district. Our district is so lucky to have wonderful educational opportunities, and yours is just one of many excellent choices that students have today. So thank you. We can't say enough positive things about it found in the region, from public and private schools, higher education, after-school programs, and so much more. Don't forget, you can read more about other educators in our Teachers and Mentors feature, as well as learn more about your family's education options to help build their children's futures in our latest issue on newsstands now or at theroanoker.com.